We're going to get started right now. I'd like to welcome everyone to this Sequim School District Zoom video. And we're going to talk about reopening the schools for this fall here on September 2nd. I want to thank everyone for attending. We hope that we get the overwhelming majority of your questions answered in regards to this situation. But before I do that, I have to, there's a lot of thank yous to go around, and my admiration and gratitude for a lot of people in this community and school district over the last 6 months. I start with our staff, administrators, teachers, paraeducators, district office staff, custodians, bus drivers, paraeducators, secretaries, every employee classification. You just stepped up in kind of a miserable situation and did the best job they could. I thank the school board for going through with this situation, asking me questions, asking the staff questions, and being very supportive of our planning of this process. And then it goes without saying the gratitude we have for our parents and our community. None of us chose to be in this situation. None of us chose for COVID. And parents, what you've gone through over the last 6 months has been every bit as difficult as what we've gone through as a staff. My children are older, but we have grandchildren, and I watch what they're going through and how they're trying to take care of their children. They aren't of school age yet, and the parents that have school age children, the parents who have little ones, it's been a catastrophic 6 months for all of us. And on one hand, we'd like to see it end, but I keep waiting for the light at the end of the tunnel to shine, and it's not getting very bright. And so I want to, again, express my gratitude and thanks. I want to talk a little bit about the formality of this meeting. We ask you to please keep your mic muted. There will be, we're answering questions that we've received. Our administrative staff will be doing that. This meeting will be recorded for those who were unable to make the meeting. And it will be posted on our website, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, if not early on Friday, because there is a process that things need to be edited and make sure. We also have multiple board members that will be present. So this is in fact a pseudo board meeting. I wanted you to be aware of that. So the first question is, where are we at and how did we get here? We all know that last spring, Governor Inslee on March 17th or thereabouts shut down schools for 6 weeks to take care of situations in regards to the pandemic. From there, sometime in the middle of April, he canceled school and closed school for the rest of the year. At that time that he closed school, we all anticipated that we'd be back in session, ready to go, just like normal in this fall. And there have been times that I thought in June that we might be there. One of the reasons, and I've been asked this question multiple times, why did we wait to make a decision? And one of the reasons, the biggest reason, was because the situation changes weekly, if not daily. And the biggest reason why, for me personally and for the board and our staff, is we wanted our kids to be in school face-to-face. We presented a plan to the board and the community on the 3rd that was going to have a slow, staggered opening, where we were going to be very methodical about that opening. We were going to start with about 50 kids per building, and hopefully move up from there, gradually getting bigger till with more students on campus until we were at a situation that we were, all there face to face. What happened over the last week was not anticipated. On last Wednesday, a week ago today, the numbers in Clallam County were approximately 36 cases per 100,000 residents. And let me back up a second. I got a little ahead of myself. In July, one of the things that the State Department of Health and the Clallam County Department of Health indicated to us that one of the big things in reopening was the number of cases our county, the individual county school districts were in, cases per 100,000. If you were under 25, you could start with a fairly level of normalcy. If you were between 25 and 75, you could have some in-person instruction, but you needed to, that needed to be a small number. If you were over 75 per 100,000, you could not have any in-person instruction with the exception of a few students who with disabilities and had an IEP, that their education could only be provided on an in-person basis because of the equipment and the paraphernalia that the school district have. It would and the obligation of the IEP. Last Wednesday, again, our county was at 36 per 100,000. In 1 week, this morning we were at 94. On Monday afternoon, the other Clallam County superintendents and myself had a meeting with Dr. Unthank, and it was determined that Clallam County schools would all start remote. Would ask Tracy to open that press release, please. I'm not getting, you all can read, and I'm not going to take the time, but this was the recommendation of our county health department. All of the superintendents agreed that we had to do this, and that is what we're doing. So this is not just the Sequim School District. This is every school district in Clallam County. And let me be clear about this, that on one hand, it is a recommendation from Dr. Unthank, but I also want to be clear with this fact. All of the school districts in our insurance cooperative, and there's well over 100, were given notice by our insurance company that if we did not adhere to the recommendations of our county health department, our insurance would not cover us for COVID-related situations. So we take our orders and recommendations from those individuals very seriously. I spoke to the school board about this. I am, well, as much as I wanted to be with in-person education, we have to recognize that the health and safety of our students, our staff, and our community are paramount. And we take that situation very seriously, and we're going to move forward from there. Towards the end of the meeting, I'll talk about how we'll get back, how we can get back on track, how we can come to a situation where we are back with more in-person education, brick and mortar, a level of normalcy that we all desire to have. But to be clear, the governor, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, the Washington State Department of Health, the Clallam County Department of Health, and those agencies, those organizations dictate what we do. Whether I agree with them or disagree with them, I along with the school board, took an oath that we would honor the government and the organizations that govern us. That's where we're at, and we're going to move forward. One of the things I want to talk about before the principals and the assistant superintendent and other people talk, I want to talk about part of this exercise that we're going to be going through in the next few months is to rebuild the trust in you that we will provide a solid, above average, great education for your children. That's something the Sequim School District has taken a great deal of pride in over the years, and I was impressed by what I saw last year, that being my first year in the district. Let me say the COVID pandemic jumped up on us, and we didn't do as good a job as we normally do. And we spent this summer building up our remote and virtual education. You expected better from us, and we're going to deliver better. I take my hat off to the time and effort our people spent to deliver the education you're going to get this fall. We understand that you were disappointed in some of the things that transpired last spring. So were we. We will do better. I'm not a person who dwells in the past. It's time to move forward. We will provide a better education for your children, just like we expect to do every year. Every year we have to get better as an institution because we owe it to the children in the community of Sequim. Every one of our staff recognizes that. And it is our desire, it is our goal to provide that solid education that you are used to receiving. I'm going to have some time at the end and answer some district-wide questions, but before we go forward, I'd like to introduce to you Megan Like. Megan Like is our Public Information Officer, and she's going to talk about communication from the district moving forward. Megan?
Thank you, Dr. Clark, and thank you so much to the Sequim community for joining us here tonight. On August 3rd, the Back to School Task Force presented a reopening schools plan and to the Board of Directors, and it was approved. In that plan was a section about communication, and so that's what I'm going to talk to you about right now. We presented a trifold approach to maximize our absorption of information to our families. We felt that was very solid. We have a print, which would be our emails, the newspaper that we use, the newsletters that we write, Facebook posts, and our website. We added Audible, which I know that a lot of you have heard Dr. Clark on the radio. We have 2 radio stations that he has currently been on, and we're hoping that that would continue one time a month, for both of those stations. We also are hoping, and I'm really excited about, a project of podcasting. I believe hearing from our teachers firsthand, hearing from administrators, just getting word out, super easy 5-minute podcasts, just to hear kind of what's happening. We also started videos. I know that a lot of you have noticed that on August 10th, we ended up posting our very first one of Dr. Clark. The next one was Wednesday the 12th, and we did one with Sonia Bittner. You can see right on the screen. We also did one with Dungeness Virtual School with Vince Riccobeni. So if you haven't watched those, please watch them. They're amazing. They're located on our website. But we did these videos because we understood that there are many ways that we take in information. Not everybody likes reading long emails. I know, shocker. We also heard from families. And so we rolled out these videos in a way to communicating. And we would really like to continue to do that. We will continue to send family follow-ups on Wednesdays from the school district, and very soon you will be hearing from communications from your children's school. Once a week, it'll be an easy one-page newsletter that is formatted into a template that all 5 schools will be using. So it will be an easy to navigate and locate information. I would also like to give an announcement that there will still be a back to school fair we are really excited about doing. It is going to be a drive-through. It is going to start in the stadium parking lot, and if you need to know the cross streets, we're going to look at Fur and 3rd, and it will be on August 29th, and all of that information and more is located on our district website at sequimschools.org. And if you go to the top of that page, there's a banner that says Back to School Fair. It's a drive-through. And click on that, and it will send you right to all the information that you need for the Back to School Fair. That is it.
Thank you, Megan. Now I'd like to introduce Donna Hudson and Becky Stanton. Donna's the principal.
Also, we would like to remind you that we do want to do a Skyward update. So if you have not been receiving emails in your email address that you gave the school in the first place, or if you've changed your email address, we would love to capture that information. So log into Skyward, be able to update any phone numbers for our text alerts that we are giving also, and our Skyward emails. Thanks so much, guys.
Again, thank you, Megan. Now I'd like to introduce Donna Hudson, the principal at Gray Wolf, and Becky Stanton, the principal at Haller, and they're going to talk about our elementary program this fall.
Great, thank you, Dr. Clark. First, we'd like to say that we're very excited for the chance to open school back up, even if it's remotely. We've been working really hard for the programs that we want to offer our kids this year, and both Principal and Stanton and I have worked to really have a elementary school program that's very cohesive between the 2 buildings. And we'll talk about that in just a second. I think Principal Stanton would like to say hello.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to echo Donna's sentiments about working hard together to provide a cohesive learning plan for all of our students in the Sequim School District at the elementary level.
So we want to talk about 2 things. First, we want to talk about our remote learning plan, and we call it Remote Learning 2.0 because Remote Learning 2.1 last spring, and we've all mentioned it. We had about 3 days to prepare, and we decided to go with the packet program and tried to support families via email and Class Dojo. This year, we feel like we have a much better program, and we're excited to see how it works for our staff and our families. We won't be using Class Dojo. We'll be moving to a teaching platform called Canvas. The exciting thing about Canvas is it's made for online remote learning, and Dojo was never made for online or remote learning. We're going to follow that up with Microsoft Teams. What's exciting on Canvas, we'll be able to post assignments for our families, but on Microsoft Teams, we'll be able to do some live small group work and some class meetings. It's important to us that we have a chance to do a lot of culture building while our kids are away from us at home learning. And so our teachers will do class meetings with the whole class. It'll give our kids a chance to see one another, and it will also give our kids a chance to see their teacher and feel a lot more like a classroom setting than we were able to offer in the spring. So that's just a thumbnail of what remote learning will look like at the elementaries. If you'll go to the district website, there is a remote learning tab, and that has all the most up-to-date information. It has some tutorials for families about Canvas and Microsoft Teams. Our teachers will also be reaching out about those things. So we know there's some uncertainty with our families. We understand that, but I want you to know we're working very hard with Ellen Haller and Principal Stanton, both of our staff, to make this a great and much improved learning experience for our kids. If you need to get a hold of us or our teachers, you can always find teacher and principal office web email addresses on our website. And we're working to have a Helen Haller at sequimschools.org and a Gray Wolf at sequimschools.org email set up in the next few weeks so that we can, and we'll send that out via an email through Skyward. But we want to make it as easy for our families as we can to both communicate with us or their teachers, but also to for the kids to communicate about their learning, how their work is going, and have a chance to see their teachers for a conversation every week. So that's a little bit about remote learning and how to get a hold of us at our buildings. And right there you can see the remote learning schedule. That will be on the remote learning tab on the district website, so families have a great chance to dig in and really see what our plans are for kids this spring, this fall.
All right, so we're going to take a moment to answer some questions that pertain to the elementary level. This is Rebecca Stanton. So the question is, will there be live instruction this year? Yes. Each grade level will have their own videos for ELA and math curriculums, and you'll be able to find those links under specific tabs in Canvas.
So one of the questions we had once we get back to school is, what will that day look like? So one of the things we know for sure it will look like is we'll have kids on campus our regular business hours. So for Gray Wolf, the school day at this time, the plan is to look like a regular school day, 8:30 start and a 3 o'clock finish. For Helen Haller, it'll be an 8:15 start and a 2:45 finish. We expect that to look very similar. We have scheduled individual recess breaks for classes. So at Gray Wolf, we'll have 3 recesses a day for individual classes. That is a time where students get to take a mask break, and so they do not have to wear their masks outside. But the activities kids will take part in may look different from what they've done in the past. We do still have to keep students a social distance part away, so we will have some intentional activities for kids on the recess grounds. We want kids to be out, to be active, to have a chance to take a break from their mask, but we also are very what we care about the most is that we keep our kids safe. So yes, kids will have 3 healthy recesses during the day with protocols in place to keep them safe.
Next question is, will students come to get textbooks, and do we need to get the school supplies from the list that were at the stores? So 2 things. One, if you go to the back to school fair, you'll have all of the supplies that you need. They have lists there, and they're building bags for everybody. Let's see. As far as textbooks and materials go, you'll need to, we're designing a meet and greet your teacher drive-through with supplies that you might need, whether it's a paper workbook piece, if it's a personal whiteboard that kids use for math, markers, all that kind of stuff. We're going to have exactly what your students need in order to start the year.
Okay, so we've had quite a few questions from our families about how are my kids going to get help if they're struggling with the online program. And that's one of the nice things we're excited about, excuse me, Microsoft Teams. It allows not just our teachers to have class meetings with students, but it allows our Tier 2 and Tier 3, so our Wolf Den, Mrs. Wicker for math. It allows them to have a small group instruction for all of for the students as they need it, and parents will talk to teachers. Teachers will talk to parents about the needs that kids have, and then we hope to really be able to do individual instruction, small group instruction, just like we would as a regular part of our school day.
Okay, the next question is, how will the teacher assess my child's development through online learning? Will there be one-on-one teaching opportunities? Yes. Your child will be assessed. Teachers are experts with that. You can upload assignments teachers will give. They'll have conversations, we'll give feedback, we'll have group instruction. Teachers are busy deciding standards that they're teaching at the grade level for each semester. And we're standards-based report card, standards-based learning in the elementary level. So as teachers decide the standards, they're also deciding how students are going to be assessed. And so you will have, and how teachers do that is, how are students progressing towards the standards? So there's a variety of ways that they do that through assignments and different assessments, and your teachers will make that very clear for your students. The next question would be, will my son or daughter be required to log in during business hours, or can he complete work and listen to his teacher on his own time? That's the beauty of the remote learning, is that with Canvas, all the assignments at the elementary level will be uploaded every Monday. And then on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all the assignments for each of those days are under there as well. But that starts on Monday. So if you decide you would like to do all the math on Monday, you can choose to do that. If you want to choose to work on your math at 6 o'clock, you can. But like Principal Hudson had said, we will also have office hours and synchronous learning for students, and we will also have help for students with our intervention teams. So there's plenty of help and plenty of videos, and you get to decide what time you're watching those videos, because that's what will work best for you. We will also have each teacher will also put out a suggested schedule for their grade level, so that helps you frame learning for your student. But again, you will have the flexibility to do this on your time frame and manage other family members and technology with that.
Another thing that we wanted to make sure we covered is the number of minutes that you should expect for your kids to be working at school on a remote, excuse me, on a remote program. The numbers this year, if you have pre-K students, you should expect about 30 minutes of instruction, 30 minutes of schoolwork a day. If you have a first or second grade student, about 75 minutes. And again, as Principal Stanton said, classroom teachers will have a schedule set up for you so that it will help you. It may be do math at 10 o'clock, do reading at 11:30, do some writing at 1 o'clock, but they will set up those schedules to help families be able to schedule that learning over not just a 75-minute period, but more flexibly over the day. Our third and fourth grade teachers and students have 90 minutes a day. And for our fifth graders, our K1s will have 75, our first and second grade will have 90, and our fourth and fifth grade will have 120 minutes of instruction, schoolwork a day. So hopefully that's has enough rigor to really help kids stay on pace to cover all the material that we need to through the end of the year, but also not too much to wear out our families and our kids. And again, if you're having concerns, please contact your teacher or contact us at our Helen Haller or Gray Wolf at Sequim Schools email, and we will help problem solve that for you. So that's what we think. We've covered most of the questions. Really, we think we've covered everything that families have sent in as far as elementary program. I think both Principal Stanton and I just want to reiterate that our teachers are just really wanting to get back to school. We know the kids want to get back to school. We miss our kids, and I know that they miss their teachers. So we're looking for a really improved remote learning 2.0. We'll have more information coming out to families, and hopefully we'll give it to you in a way that it works for you and your kids, so that we can have some great success until we can be together in our classrooms. So Dr. Clark, that is the elementary program.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hudson, Mrs. Stanton. Great job. Now I'd like to introduce Mark Harris, Sequim Middle School principal, and he's going to talk about the middle school situation this fall.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. My name is Mark Harris, and it's my pleasure and privilege to be the principal at the middle school. First of all, I'd say it's been great to work with the other buildings. We've tried to be very careful about how we carve up a week and be respectful of the fact that our older kids may be working with younger siblings during the week. That being the case, elementary is going to be doing their synchronous, that live work in the mornings. We'll be looking around midday at the middle school level, and as Mr. Langston will get to, the high school will be using the afternoons to work in. Some of the questions that we've had are pretty straightforward. When is the schedule work out? This is the example we had that we presented to the school board. Principal Langston and myself have had further conversations to try and adjust this, and we will publish that adjusted schedule very quickly. I think it'll get posted as quickly as tomorrow for availability's sake. And the thing that will be different is you'll notice that on the new one that's going to come out is we've carved out time for kids to see their teachers twice a week for about a 40-minute live or synchronous time period. That's one element that we'll have offered at secondary. The other piece, of course, is our teachers are going to be working hard to record the instructional elements that children will be able to revisit over and over again for those critical pieces of learning that perhaps one time seeing or hearing isn't sufficient. And those will be available through Canvas, just as it will be for elementary and for the high school. So that's a critical piece. Now, what about when's the school day start and end? Our staff are going to be available starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to be working availability-wise until 3. For us, since we have about the middle of the day is when we're going to be targeting for our staff to be doing that live conference type setup. And so, you know, they are learning the details, and they have been learning that synchronous work isn't always the same as direct instruction. You can anticipate the work that they'll do during those synchronous things will be celebrations of the learning that kids have done. There'll be some show and tell type concepts where kids will get to brag about the work that they've been doing. There'll be some feedback and guidance for some small group pieces. There will be some whole group pieces and definitely some community building that'll happen in those synchronous timeframes. But outside of that, what about the asynchronous ones or the recorded ones? Well, in the morning from about 8 to about 10:45 is where our teachers will be putting those pieces together, but they will also be available to have a phone conversation or have a team meetup for any student or family that might be needing support. And because we're in the middle of the day with our live pieces, those same teachers will be available in the afternoon between 1 and 3. So just want you to know that that's going to be out there as we try to address the needs of our kids. In terms of the materials and textbooks, we, like the elementary, are pushing our staff to find those super standards that are the most critical pieces that kids will need to have in their toolkits before they move on to the next grade. That being said, we've also asked at our building those teachers to narrow down what materials might be mandatory to be successful this year. Because if it's not needed, we understand this is a difficult time for all of us potentially relative to supplying things for our family. So you don't necessarily need to go to the store and buy that list. We will try to provide through the fair, as Principal Stanton pointed out. And then if there are any specific details, we will get that out to individual students based on which classes they are enrolled in. And our staff are putting together packages for families to potentially come and collect. Well, we may not do an entire drive-through and meet your teacher. That's not in our plans at the moment. We will try to set up appointments with students and their families to come and collect the things they need. That would include textbooks or those specialty materials based on what courses they've enrolled in. So if your child's involved in that, expect to see that. How will you know if your child's involved in that? Well, our schedules go live tomorrow afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon on Skyward, you'll be able to check and see what is my kid actually signed up for. Yes, they're probably enrolled in what we think of as our core 4, their math, their English, their science, and their history class. But there are some electives that they're signed up for, and that's where some of the specialty pieces that we might provide for you will come across. You'll come across, pardon me. In terms of the other questions we've gotten, I had a parent who wanted to know, their son's new to our school, so he's wondering, how will we place him correctly? Well, as you heard Principal Hudson say, our teachers, that's their number one priority, to make sure that they understand the children and they serve their needs. And along that lines, the district is helping our staff by providing an opportunity to do some iReady work right away and to get some diagnostic information for our teachers to account for what may have skills need to be brushed up on based on how long kids have not been in the classroom. So our staff is going to do that as part of their development before school starts in the next week or so here. I am asked a question about specifically, so what about choir for the middle school and high school? I got to tell you, that gentleman is a master at his craft. While we will probably be working through teams, I would not expect anything less from Mr. Langston to come up with some interesting and creative ideas that at the moment, he and I haven't had a chance to talk for him to share those, but he will continue to expand and grow that program, I'm sure, throughout the year. I've got another question that involves 6th graders at our building, 9th graders at the high school. Well, what we were planning if we were going back hybrid, we had some plans, but obviously those have changed and we're in remote learning at the moment. Will we plan something to introduce your new 6th graders to the physical building as they return? Absolutely, we will. We want them to be as comfortable in the building as they are in their homes in this first portion. So those are some of the biggest questions we had. About extra information or extra instruction, your teachers, there's a couple of ways to reach out to them. Email's definitely one of those, but we're sending out a Skyward piece to you to let you know that there is going to be a person in our office who can help coordinate connectivity between you and your student's teacher if you're not hearing back in a timely manner. So know that's out there. We have somebody who is there specifically if a child has needs relative to their materials or anything that they're lacking so that we can help connect you with what you need. And then we have another person in the building who is again listed on the Skyward email that's coming out, who will help you solve everything related to the details of doing school in the district, whether that be registration, whether that be getting your Skyward information updated, whether that's trying to reset emails or anything else. We'll help you out every step of the way. And we're planning at the moment, I'm kind of jumping the gun here, but we do have a staff member who is putting together a series of lessons to supplement the pieces that you see, or you can now see on our website, where you pull down and you see the tutorials about Canvas and the Microsoft products. They're working on trying to put together first a remote and then possibly a hybrid version of a parent class where you would be able to come in and learn how to utilize those pieces of software that your kids are working with and become a master and not have to have your middle school kid walk you through the technology. So those are some of the pieces on our horizon, and hopefully we've addressed all the questions. Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Sean Langston, the high school principal, and he's going to talk about the high school this fall.
All right, thank you, sir. I want to start by just saying I want to totally echo what Donna and Becky at the elementary said about trying to align district-wide, and I would expand it just not even to elementary, but K-12. I appreciate the work of our assistant superintendent, Jennifer Maughan, trying to get some continuity and consistency K-12, because we heard a lot of feedback last spring about the challenges families have with kids in multiple buildings. So we're trying to be very intentional to protect your time if you have one computer at your house, or you live up on Lost Mountain Road like we do and your technology isn't necessarily the best. So there has been a lot of collaboration amongst the K-12 group. Mark at the middle school and I have been talking quite a bit to try and get some collaboration at the secondary level. The second thing I want to talk about that Donna and Dr. Clark talked about, and Becky and Mark all did, is that we, as we said, we found out on Friday that we were going remote. Monday, all the kids were gone. So it was a reactionary time. And now I got to tell you, this is a very proactive approach this year. I have been so impressed with the number of staff members across our whole district who have dedicated their summer to professional development to learn about remote learning and study best practices. And so we are ready to roll. That being said, there's a lot of anxiety, not among just the parents and kids, I imagine, but amongst our staff. We had a department chair meeting this afternoon with our with our folks at the high school, and there's some apprehension, but people are so willing to jump in. So that's just kind of my commercial break about what Dr. Clark said earlier about we will be better this year. I think Mark Harris at the middle school did a fabulous job of explaining the schedule. It's pretty similar to what we're doing at the high school. And as I said, Mark and I have been talking quite a bit and collaborating with our leadership teams about what our two buildings will look like. It's essentially the same. Our morning time from basically 7:45-ish to around noon, our teachers will be doing their planning and prep. They'll be available for individual student and parent conferences. They'll be doing their asynchronous learning, which is basically videotaping lessons that then kids can access anytime, as you've heard from all the different folks. The schedule that we put together was one that was submitted to the board on Monday. And if you remember on Monday at that time, we were planning on going with a hybrid model. So we were planning on an AABB look. And so we basically have established Monday to be first, third, and fifth period focus, and then Tuesday to be second, fourth, and sixth. And as we bring kids back, which we're looking forward to doing at some point during this year, we will be adopting that hybrid model with the 1-3-5 and 2-4-6 on Monday. Basically, that would be half the school, and then the other half would come on Thursday and Friday with the same model of 1-3-5 and 2-4-6. That also allowed us to set up what's our synchronous time, as you've heard that before tonight. That's the time when our teachers will be live working with the kids. And I totally appreciate what Mark said about it's not necessarily a lot of direct instruction during that time. It's availability to answer questions. It's sharing out information like Mark talked about. And that will follow that 1-3-5, 2-4-6 model. So on Monday at 1:15 to 1:50, basically, first period teachers will be with their classes, all of their classes. And we too will be doing that twice a week. So your kids will have the opportunity 2 times a week at least to see their teachers face-to-face via Zoom, or via Teams rather, with those synchronous meetings. Then the Wednesdays are basically going to be available for a lot more of the individual attention that our kids might need, and or parents, with our folks being available most of the morning and then utilizing the afternoon for some professional development to continue their education about the synchronous learning and all things Canvas, as people have been talking about tonight. So that's the general schedule. I mean, I can go into great detail, but I won't right now. I will share with you that Mark said as well, ours will be ready to go probably tomorrow. It's pretty much done. We kind of finalized it this afternoon with Mark to carve out the specific times that the middle school and high school will have for their synchronous time. So we're being considerate to parents and families. So that should be on our remote tab tomorrow, so you'll be able to see more closely what that will look like. So that's basically what our schedule looks like. The second thing were the check-ins that was on the agenda there. For our folks and for, I mean, I think it's all buildings, they're basically closed right now, but we still have a lot of parents coming in. We're asking that you call and set up appointments. As Mark talked about, we have a number, I think we're at 25 right now with new families that have enrolled in at Sequim High School. So we definitely want you in, meeting with your counselor, setting up your schedule and all that kind of stuff. So what we're asking you to do is call our front office. That's Ann Chemslin, who's our office manager and a Sequim grad, by the way. Call our front office and she'll connect you with the right folks to get into our buildings to meet with families only, obviously. The third item on all of ours was the questions. A lot of those have been answered by the other folks, so I'll try and just get the highlights. When can schedules be picked up? I know that Mark talked about that as well. Our date that they'll be available to parents and students online through Skyward will be Friday this week. We're still cleaning up a few things on ours. So Friday, they'll be available online. Wednesday, which will be the first day of school on the 2nd of September, we will be doing a drive-through celebration, basically kicking off the first day of school. And that's when we're going to be doling out all of our textbooks. Kids can pick up hard copies of their schedules at that time. All things school beginning will be happening on that Wednesday, the 2nd, that will be our first day of school. I want to keep and honor that traditional first day and be able to see as many kids as possible through the drive-through model that we did last year for Campus Day and some of the senior stuff that we did. More information on Skyward will be coming to parents on that. Second question that I have on mine, you've heard it from the other folks as well, is will there be live instruction? And the answer is yes, the same as everybody else had talked about. At least twice a week, your kids will have access to their teachers through live instruction on Teams. And then individually on Wednesdays is a great opportunity for our folks to be able to meet with your kids as well. The other thing that you'll see on our schedule is we have a period carved out about an hour from, it looks like 12 to 1-ish or so, that are office hours available to kids to access their teachers for additional help as well. So there'll be multiple opportunities, both in a large group setting and individual, where folks will be able to get live instruction, which is drastically different than what we had to do last year as we reacted to the pandemic, as opposed to being proactive right now. Another question I had to do with kind of the similar thing about live instruction, but it was specific to math. Will students have math, additional help in math? And the answer to that is the same, yes, through those platforms I talked about before. The other thing that's exciting about math is we are embarking on a math adoption this year. So our folks will be doing a ton of PD on the new math curriculum, and we'll be able to roll that out. We did an ELA adoption last year and the year before. And what's exciting about all new adoptions, different than like, if you think back in the day when you were in school, adoptions in the day were getting your textbook, a big fat book, and that's what you got, maybe a workbook with it. All adoptions these days have a very strong online component to it. That was one of our saving graces through our ELA or English classes last year, was as we did that adoption, there was a massive online component already built in. Our kids prior to the March 13th, when they took off, had been doing a lot of online work with our ELA adoption already, and I'm sure that will be the case with the math as well. And then I want to say something, and I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds with Dr. Clark, but down the road, and I'm talking maybe November, October, or whatever, don't quote me on any dates, but we are looking at or excited about the possibility of bringing kids in, even if they're not on that AABB schedule as we phase kids in yet, but bringing kids in very small groups or one-on-one to work individually with our teachers during some of their times that are available to them, obviously following all safety protocols in that case. Next question I had, I just got about 3 or 4 more, it looks like, were AP classes. Yep, our AP curriculum is still going strong. One of the questions specifically was summer school homework, and I'm going to probably say no on that one. I imagine most of our folks not knowing what was going to happen for the next year and knowing that our kids weren't on campus during that spring, didn't assign summer homework. I hope I'm not stepping out of bounds. I'll check with my AP people tomorrow to solidify that answer. Next question I had was, were we going to have leadership again this year? And that's a resounding yes. We're counting on those kids. Sean O'Meara is one of our department chairs and is very excited to embark on the remote aspect of this. So we're counting on those kids to gather student voice for us. We're counting on those kids to be leaders in our school in a remote way. So leadership is a yes. Link Crew, which is our transition program for our freshmen coming in, that Sean is one of the advisors. I am as well, and Aaron Fox. We will be doing Link Crew. We're just not sure how yet. I literally got an email from Boomerang, which is the company that established Link Crew, and they have a bunch of great ideas about how we can do some remote connections with our upperclassmen for our freshmen. So you can count on it happening. How it's going to happen, we're going to figure out here in the next few weeks. Next one that I have had to do with PE, similar to what Mark said about choir and band. We're on a steep learning curve about how some of those things are going to happen instructionally. But John Lorenzen, who we talked about at the middle school, also teaches at the high school, and Bernd Foskett, who is a Hall of Fame band director at our place, who everybody knows, was in just last Thursday, kind of talking about some ideas he has. So there will be happening, those things will be happening definitely. Another side question on that had to do with PE waivers. Great question. I got to tell you that on the daily, I am getting questions asked of me that I hadn't even thought of. And PE waivers was one, knowing that we're not going to have fall sports and how kids can access that. So we will be getting more information out about how PE waivers are going to work if your student was planning on that within their 4-year plan or 5-year plan. And had planned on, let's just say, running cross country this fall, and that was going to count as a 0.5 credit. So more information will come out on that one as I gather more information. 2 more I have. One was ASB, can they be purchased online? And the answer to that is yes. But I will tell you, we're not sure exactly what the price is going to be for an ASB card. That was a conversation we had last week. It's not really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, let's just say, for a kid to buy a $40 ASB card to go watch the football game on Friday night when there is no football game on Friday night. So we are working on a reduced price for our ASB as kids start phasing back. But the answer to any of the purchase stuff, you can do that online. Erin Ohm, that's a ULM, is our an amazing money person at our school. So she would be the person to contact regarding any questions that you might have about purchasing anything. And the last one that I have has to do with letter grades. Question was, will there be letter grades? And the answer to that is a resounding yes from our place. We are transitioning, as Donna and Becky talked about, to a much more, and Mark did too, to a much more standards-based approach this year, as we say, hey, here are the 8 power standards that need to happen in this English class, and then how you're going to demonstrate how your knowledge of that. We will definitely be assessing that with letter grades this year, not the A/incomplete that we adopted last spring. So those were the questions that I have. Last thing on my agenda had to do with anything, any events we have coming up. I have 2 that I want to talk about. One is actually tomorrow, and that's at 6 o'clock. It's a Zoom meeting set up by Sean O'Meara, who I talked about earlier, Christy Queen, who's our assistant principal, who's been doing an amazing job this summer, and Aaron Fox, one of our counselors, will be doing a student check-in Zoom. It's geared towards students, but we'd love parents to come in as well. And essentially, it's a chance for us to hear from students. What anxieties you have, what can we help you with? Just basically trying to get as much student voice as possible. Students have been invited through a Skyward Blast that went out earlier this week, but if you need information on that and you want an invite that you didn't necessarily get, call our front office tomorrow and we'll get that information to you. But that's tomorrow night at 6. We want to hear from our kids because we miss them. And the last one I want to talk about, I just want to reiterate, I already said it, was on the 2nd, we will be doing a drive-through first day of school celebration where kids will get books, schedules, materials, all that kind of stuff. And it's also just a chance for us to give a rah-rah and say, here we go, we're going to make this the best thing that's possible. I sent out my staff letter to my folks earlier this week and kind of ended with, we got this. That's kind of been the mantra at the high school is we're all in this thing together, and we're gonna put a product out there that we're excited about. I want to reiterate one more time how much work our folks have done all summer long to make this craziness the best that we possibly can. And I believe that's it, Dr. Clark. Thank you very much.
Real quick, Sean, before you get off there, could you briefly talk about the making up of incompletes last spring?
I can, you bet. So that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. We submitted to the board on Monday, and we talked about this last spring. You should have got this information out from me, but who knows, it was so crazy. But if your child or someone you know received an incomplete last year, they have until they graduate to make that up. We want to convert all those incompletes, as many as possible. We did have a number of them, not as many as we obviously wanted those to be reduced in the craziness. Our big mantra last year around incompletes was grace, showing our kids grace in this crazy time, and equity. But the way that you can make up, or your kids can make up their incomplete, is several. First one I'll talk about is, let's just say your kid is in a class that is sequential. I'm in algebra, and now I'm scheduled for geometry, for example. The standards that you need in algebra are built so then you're going to utilize those in geometry. So if your kids are successful first semester in geometry, it's obvious that they've now met those standards. So we will be converting those incompletes to A's is what we will, because they're an A or an incomplete. That same thing would hold true in an English class. I was an English teacher. If I have a sophomore English class and I have a student who received an incomplete second semester, their 9th grade year, but they were progressing satisfactorily and meeting the standards that I had established, or that we had established through the state standards, that would indicate that they have now met those standards, and that incomplete would be changing at semester 2 to an A. Another way that you can change those, if it's a standalone class, because we have a lot through our CTE or elective offerings that aren't necessarily sequential, is you can utilize Apex or other online platforms that are able to get that credit for those students. On that same token, a number of our teachers who utilized Canvas last year put the standards that were required for that spring semester in Apex. If a student received an incomplete, it's imperative that the teacher is aware of what standards that student didn't meet. So contact that teacher and find out exactly what standards and how can I demonstrate that I have knowledge now of those standards, and that incomplete will be changed to an A. Those are the main ways. The other one I would add is accessing, when I said Apex, that's an online class, but you could also do that through DVS or our SOS program, which is our alternative school basically within the high school. There are ways that you can access online classes to meet those needs. So those are some ways to remedy those incompletes. Strongly encourage you, if you have specific questions, email me or call me, and I'll hook you up with your teachers, find out exactly the best way. And on that same note, I had a registrar, Denise Kettle, came in the other day and had a student that was leaving, transferring to, I think it was Stadium in Tacoma, and she asked about how to remedy her incomplete. Well, we'll hook her up with the teacher, find out what the standards are, because we're going to get kids from other schools that are also in that same boat that have an incomplete. So it's incumbent upon us to try and find ways to remedy those kids, just like it is as that person transfers to Stadium. They're going to need to know that knowledge as well. So that's what I got. Anything else, Dr. Clark, about that one?
Thank you for clarifying that, Sean.
Okay.
Now I'd like to introduce the principal at DVS and OPA. New assignment this year, Vince Riccobeni. Vince?
Thanks, Dr. Clark. I'll talk about DVS first. DVS is a free online school, OSPI approved online school by the Sequim School District. We'll be serving students in 3rd through the 12th grade. It's an opportunity for a non-traditional education for our kids, taught by Sequim School District teachers. We currently have one teacher already hired, and it just so happens that tomorrow we will be interviewing for another teacher because the interest is growing for students that want to participate in DVS. DVS is going to utilize 2 different online providers. Odyssey-ware will be the provider for students in 3rd through the 5th grade, and Ingenuity will be provided for students in 6th through 12th grade. There's a wide range of course availability for students, from credit recovery all the way to honors and even advanced placement courses. We're currently putting together a lot of materials, and one of those things we're putting together right now is our course master. There's a very specific outlined student contact requirements. Students are required to have contact with their teacher at least once per week. That could come in a variety of ways. It could be a phone call. It could be a scheduled time in a face-to-face meeting. It could be via Microsoft Teams. In addition to that, there are monthly progress reviews. Students in alternative learning programs like OPA and DVS are required to create written student learning plans, and teachers and students and families monitor those plans monthly. Students that are in DVS have to follow graduation requirements from the district and the state of Washington. They also have to follow all of our state assessment requirements at each grade level as well. We're super excited to get started with DVS. There's a lot of unknowns right now, but we're working really hard kind of on the back end of things to ensure all the technology components are working and that students will be successful. We've just sent a letter out to families that are fully registered. And one of the things that you can look for is conferences with individual students and families will be taking place starting September 2nd. Those conferences will be about a half hour long, 45 minutes or so, and that'll be an opportunity for students to select the correct courses, get started in the software, craft their written student learning plan, and just get them off and running. I think that's everything for DVS. I will transfer to OPA right now. Like all the things that were mentioned before, OPA's remote learning plan is still in draft. We should have it finished by the end of this week and posted on our district website. But just like all the other schools, we'll be utilizing Canvas as our learning management software. We'll have synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities for students. We will align our elementary kids with the elementary schools. We will align our synchronous times with the secondary programs, just at the middle school and the high school as well, so that learning will be similar for all of our students across the district. Just as mentioned before, students will access Canvas and Office 365, and they'll have a chance to still engage with their teachers on a scheduled basis and have a very clear expectations about what a school they should be at the elementary, middle, and high school level. We really appreciate, I think Mark shared it earlier, the opportunity for families and kids to engage in understanding how to work in Canvas, how to use Microsoft Teams, how to access all the different technology components. Shout out to Jennifer. A lot of those materials are already available on the district website, and we know there's more that we have to do to help engage our families and our students in being successful in remote learning. We just shot a letter out to families today, sharing some of the components of our remote learning plans. A couple of dates to stick in your mind right now is on September the 28th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Carrie Blake Park. We're going to have a very informal ice cream social. Be a chance to kind of meet and greet and talk with everyone and talk a little bit about the school year. Of course, we'll be socially distancing and we'll be masking up, but it's just a chance for the OPA learning community to connect with each other because we just haven't had a chance to do that in a while. And the last thing I wanted to share with OPA will also, in lieu of our regular Otter Day, where students had a chance to select courses, develop their written student learning plans, those will be appointment only, and those will be taking place between September 2nd to September the 4th. And all this information is outlined in the newsletter we just shared with families. And Dr. Clark, I think that might answer all of the questions.
Thank you, Vince. And now, next we have Shelley Langston, our special ed director.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to share a little bit about what's happening in the special education world. With all that, start by saying that our office, we're so grateful to be able to work with the team of principals and assistant principals and counselors that have been really working tirelessly all summer trying to figure out how to be even greater. You can edit my. Oh, am I cutting out, Rob?
I was muted. Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit.
All right, let me see if I can move and if that will help. All right, maybe it's better in here. Okay, so shout out to the principals, shout out to the teachers, counselors, assistant principals, everybody for getting us this far. I wanted to talk really quickly about, some of the 5 main areas that are driving decisions for our special education teams. Real quick, I'll just kind of zip through them. You'll be able to see this in writing in some other reopening documents soon. First of all, compassion is really what is going to drive our decisions and all of our interactions. That's a pretty high bar, but we are really going to try to do that for our families, students, and also each other. We think that we'll make really great decisions if we can get to that place. Then the health and safety first, dealing with specially designed instruction, deliver services, assess, repeat. Keeping thoughtful documentation so that we all know what we all know, and then maintaining compliance through SPI so that we can bring in all of the funding that's available to us. So we had a couple of questions, I think, for me. One of the questions was the preschool plan, and a letter was written today by our preschool teacher that we'll review tomorrow, and we'll probably go out to parents early next week explaining what our new plan is moving forward. But definitely we will be meeting with you somewhere early in September to make specific individual decisions for each of our preschool students. And then one of our other questions, or one of the other questions from families was, how are we bringing students back? I know Dr. Clark had mentioned that at the last meeting or last couple of meetings that we really intended to bring some students back. And, I think it's important to say that, 90% of our students with IEPs are most of the time in general ed classes. And that's great. So we know that services are going to be delivered in that way. We do have some students who spend less time in the general education setting, and that is definitely where our priority list lies. So, Monday morning we had a meeting and a pretty good plan with what we were going to do. And by Monday night, that all changed. So we will continue to determine with families how and the best way to bring some students back as soon as we know that it's safe enough to do so. I think those were my main questions. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Langston.
Sure.
And now I'd like to introduce our Assistant Superintendent, Jennifer Maughan. She's going to talk about teaching and learning, technology, and other items of interest. Jennifer.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Thank you, everyone who's been answering questions and talking through everything. From a person who likes to see things on paper, I want to assure the community that sometime by the end of this week, most, if not all, of this information will be added to our website under the tab that is stated as remote learning. It's in the upper right-hand corner of our website. There's a lot of moving parts, and so I want to make sure that everything that we do put out to the community on our website is ready to go. In terms of teaching and learning, I'm going to talk about a few things that people had questions about. First, I'm going to talk about our highly capable students. I do have to give a shout out to our highly capable coordinator, Jody Olson. She has been working tirelessly all summer to find out about the newest curriculum and online learning for our highly capable students. And we were in the middle of identifying highly capable students when COVID happened in March. So we do have some students that we are going to try and bring in at a social distance with social distancing protocols to make sure that we accurately assess them for highly capable. We'll do that in the next few weeks. And Jody has probably already reached out to you regarding that. And like I said, she's done a lot of work around curriculum and other things for our highly capable students. That will be in the remote learning plan as well, that I hope to have up later this week. So one of the questions that I got was, how will those students who were enrolled in highly capable be engaged with their peers in a daily or weekly fashion for their advanced growth and development? And that's the beauty of having Canvas and Microsoft Teams. Those students can collaborate and meet with each other within those Microsoft Teams. Jody Olson will be able to meet with her students during those times on Microsoft Teams. So if you have more information, we'll put Jody's information on the website, but just wanted to say that she's been working diligently to make sure that we differentiate for those students. I've got another one. How will students get help with things they don't understand or need something additional? I think all the principals did an excellent job of talking about what will be different this fall as opposed to last spring. There'll be lots of ways for students and teachers and staff to communicate. So you'll see those changes coming out soon. Couple other questions that came to my office. One person had stated, do I really need to send my students back to school? I'm very terrified and don't feel safe. Obviously, we're going to start in a remote learning fashion. However, if you don't feel comfortable sending your student back, they can stay remote as long as you want them to stay remote. I just ask that you keep in contact with the student's teacher and the administrators at that building. We're going to be very flexible, and we want to make sure that we help families with very flexible situations coming up this year. So I'm going to go a little bit into technology. I know technology there's a lot of things that need to happen in technology. We are still distributing computers to families that need them. So if you need a computer, please contact your student's principal or assistant principal or the office staff. They're helping the technology department and I get that information and those computers out to students. And like the principal said earlier, they have done a really good job of aligning their schedules. And I'm going to hope to get those schedules out to you on Friday in terms of what a remote learning schedule looks like. So they have scheduled it so that no child at different buildings would be needing to be on a synchronous learning environment, so a live environment at the same time. So for those families who have multiple students in multiple buildings, that's not going to be an issue any longer. They've aligned subject areas by assignments. So when those assignments go out, they're lumped by subject area. And another thing that we are working on is around best practices in a K-12 environment. So what we don't want to see is having several teachers email families 15 times a week. There was a lot of emailing. I think in the spring, it was the way that we contacted each other. We weren't sure how everything was going, but we will make some guidelines around how much and how often we should be emailing. Canvas has the ability that we don't want you to turn off notifications, but if they're becoming too much, you can let us know and we can tighten that up a little bit so a lot of messages don't come out and you don't get overwhelmed. I am concerned about families who don't have internet access for a variety of reasons. If people can get a hold of the building principals and offices and let us know that you don't have internet access, we're going to help see what we can do for families that don't have that. But Dr. Clark and I have been discussing bringing students in that don't have that access on a limited basis once we get up and running, if that continues to be a problem for families. So we want to make sure that we remove that barrier for students moving forward. And another question that came to me is, we only have one computer at home. How are you going to handle Zoom calls or certain times where there's only one computer in the house? So again, if you need a computer, please make sure you get a hold of us. And we've made it so that there's not learning going on throughout the K-12 system. The buildings have staggered when they're going to have synchronous learning. And I am just running through my questions. And I think, Dr. Clark, that is all the questions that came to me right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, I hope what all the principals and the special ed director, Jennifer, Maughan, answered many of your questions. I don't know that we've answered all of them, but you know how to get a hold of us if you haven't. Some things that I want to talk about and questions that were directed at the district office and the whole district that it really falls on my shoulders to answer those questions. One of them involves childcare. And do we have the ability, or are we looking at the options of childcare? And the answer to that question is yes. Although it has been a little bit of a back burner issue for us simply because we need to get school started. And after school gets started, you're going to see us and look at some childcare operations. I've been contacted, as have others in the district, by some of our local nonprofits and churches that they're willing to volunteer, perhaps use their building. We might be able to utilize some other facilities for childcare. We're going to look at those opportunities. We're going to see what we can do for you. And right now, I know the city and Charlie Bush and his crew are looking at venues to provide childcare. We realize that's a concern for many of you. And we're hoping that we can really step up to the plate and provide some opportunities for the families that are in need of child care. And that in many ways includes our own employees. Going back to what Jennifer said in regards, we're looking at utilizing some of our standalone facilities. For example, the high school cafeteria, that where a student can come in and utilize the internet, log in. It's, you know, it has restroom facilities, perhaps get a meal and be in there for masked up, social distance, and for a period of time. So your children would have access to the internet, because we realize that in some cases, perhaps the reason you don't have internet is economic. We can provide hotspots and we can help with the Wi-Fi, but in other cases it's geographic. I think Mr. Langston described that in his household. So if it's geographic, hotspots may not help, and we will look to provide, including transportation to and from the school. So that's some of the questions. We're working on devices and getting devices out to individuals like Jennifer described, and we're doing everything we can to bring some level of normalcy to this fall. One of the things I talked about earlier is what are some of the benchmarks that we will be using to come back with more students. I do think there will be some short-term things that happened, and Mr. Langston, I think Mrs. Hudson alluded to it, where there may be times where there's a one-on-one office hour type thing, socially distanced, mask up with individual teachers. Those things will happen probably sometime end of September, 1st of October. Those will be sporadic and not, and probably inconsistent in the sense that, you know, we'll need to be very clear about the few amount of students that can be on campus. The other part is that, you know, per directions of the Department of Health, it was decided that we need to have 4 weeks, which is 28 days, consecutive of under 75 cases per 100,000 population. As I said earlier today, we were at 94 this morning. And if you check the statewide website, there's about a 3 to 5 day lag on that. So I'm getting information directly from the Department of Health on a daily or an every other day basis. So we have to have 28 consecutive days where we're under 75. I could estimate when that day would come. I think best case scenario is towards the end of October. Because we do have a holiday coming up here on around 10 days. And if you follow the data and you follow the statistics, they always jump up about 10 days after a 3-day weekend or a holiday. So I am concerned about that. How can we start any sooner than the end of October? I don't know. I will always hope so. I know it's incumbent upon every one of us to follow the Department of Health guidelines. And I'm not here to lecture anyone, but if we truly are all in this together, we all have to mask up. We all have to be careful about the crowds we get into. We, you know, have family functions, but to go to large gatherings, you have to be careful. You have to, take care of the situation because there are so many asymptomatic people out there. I've talked to our staff. I've talked to our principals about being role models in this regards. We're getting more people on our campus. We're taking temperatures. We're doing everything we can to prevent the spread. And I realize that there's probably more that we can do, and we're touching base on that continually. Know that we consider the trust that you put in us to educate your children as a sacred trust. We take that very seriously. We will be providing a quality education for your sons and daughters. We will make you proud of us. And I am looking forward to the start of this school year, just like I look forward to the start of every school year. I thank you as parents. I thank you as staff. We're in this together. Good luck. Have a great day. Stay healthy. And we will see you on the 2nd, if not sooner. Thank you.